When a company signs up for an AI assessment, are they really just looking for places to plug in AI? And what happens when the assessment reveals AI might not even be the first step? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on what an AI assessment actually looks like, from discovery and process mapping to roadmap design and effort versus value prioritization. By the end of this episode, you'll understand why an AI assessment isn't about installing technology. It's about protecting ROI, building the right foundation, and creating a strategic path forward that may include AI, but only when the business is ready. Welcome back to Not Your Grandpa's JD Edwards. I'm your host, Nate Bushfield. AI is everywhere right now. Leadership teams are talking about it, boards are asking about it, companies are putting it on their roadmap. But here's the real question. What actually happens when you schedule an AI assessment? Is it just someone coming in and pointing to areas where you can plug AI in? Or is it something much deeper? And more importantly, why does it take time? Today, we're walking through the entire process, what happens step by step, what companies actually walk away with, and why the effort versus value analysis inside the assessment is what ultimately protects your investment. Joining me today is Drew Robb from ERP Suites, who's been directly involved in conducting these assessments. Drew, welcome back. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Nate. A little busy today, but being busy helps, you be productive. So I'm really excited today to take a second to talk about really assessments and AI assessments and where they fit in your business, specifically in your JD Edwards ecosystem. So super excited today, Nate.
Yeah, I know that you're actually a part of a few of them right now. So let's start here because this might surprise some people. Is it possible that someone comes to you saying, we need AI? And by the end of the assessment, you realize AI isn't actually the first solution?
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot. A lot of times we will have those initial discovery calls, right? And we start seeing, where the customer is currently at with AI, where their AI maturity really is, how educated they are with AI. Really if they have any established use cases in the AI framework or thinking about AI. And what we find to see a lot of times is, yeah, customers can be pretty far along in the process, right? And when the customers are far along in the process, we can jump into figuring out AI in their business. It's still going to have some, figuring out how their processes work and how they operate, but the timeline may be reduced, right? But sometimes when we start talking about AI, what we realize with customers is, maybe they are doing a lot of manual work in their business, right? Maybe their whole financial system or financial close is messed up and they need to fix that, or maybe aging statements or aging reports are all out of whack. And what you really start to realize is that it's more of a data issue that AI can't solve, right at the beginning, because, with our AI solutions, a lot of times we need data to build out good AI solutions, to train the models, to build out the agents, and really understanding the underlying process as well is also very important. So we start to realize that becomes, sometimes more of a business assessment rather than an AI assessment.
So let's assume that AI might be part of the long-term vision. Maybe not in the phase one, but maybe in the two or three. Walk us through what actually happens once someone moves forward with an AI assessment, like when they start.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the important thing to understand is, it's really all around alignment even before that. And alignment is understanding where the customer currently is at, right? Setting the groundwork for the assessment and understanding who will be involved from, a specific product champion who will usher and be a part of championing the assessment and making sure everyone on the customer side who is involved in the process improvement is being involved in every session and understanding that their impact means something and they need to speak out and they need to be open about issues they are having in their business. And that's the most important thing, is aligning on what we're going to do in the assessment as well. What are the deliverables we're going to receive at the end, and all that. And that's really from a alignment and kickoff meeting. Now, when starting the assessment, though, to answer your question more fully, is really to do discovery, right? Sit
Mhm.
down with the functional team members on one specific process. And I think that's the important thing to highlight in the assessment. You don't want to bite off the whole cake or elephant, as you call it, right?
Mhm.
You don't want to start to go after everything in your business because that just becomes a lot of detail work, right? And that comes from the preliminary calls as well. We want to define a single process that we want to tackle with these assessments, right? And having specific discovery calls about these processes with your functional teams, right? So really
Mhm.
understanding how a business analyst operates in that specific process, the end to end that they go through in their day to day lives, and really uncovering pain points there to start off. But really, it also goes into really understanding, yeah, the end to end process. Identifying pain points and
Yeah.
having multiple sessions in this space as well to really get the clear picture of what we're trying to solve with the AI solution and really start to identify gaps and process improvements.
Yeah. So when they walk into this assessment, well,
Yeah,
virtually, or if you're
virtually.
actually
Yeah,
on
like to
or
do the
on
discovery
site, whatever.
process in person, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when that conversation is happening, do you see a lot of companies are walking in with their own pain points, or are you trying to help them uncover some more, or what does that process truly look like?
Yeah, what we really see here is, after really understanding their end-to-end process, we like to have discussion sessions as well, right? And this is where we encourage customers to really bring in the pain points or bottlenecks of their day-to-day lives. So with these discussions, we can start to unpack those and really start to realize value and highlight opportunities from those specific pain points. Again, we're not solutioning yet, but it's really starting to paint a picture of their day-to-day jobs, where they see bottlenecks and how we can start to alleviate those in different ways, whether that be through, as mentioned before, JD Edwards functionality, automation, or even AI. It just really depends, right, on the specific pain point. But that's where we start. We definitely want interaction, right? We want to hear their pain points, but we also want
Yeah.
to take these sessions to uncover our own, and at the end
Yeah.
of the assessment, present those findings back to the customer as well.
Yeah, and when you're deciding these pain points, when you're working with them, how do you decide which pain point to tackle first? Is it the quick wins, or are they the most impactful pain points in the company?
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a great question. This comes back to having an overall discussion with the company and really
Mm.
presenting the specific pain points back, right? And you start to really realize, what are the high value, but also um, high effort sort of pain points there
Mhm.
and in solutions we want to solution out, um, versus the low effort, high impact solutions. So it really just depends on what they want to start with. And this can really depend on, you know, different departments of the business. Are they ready to start this solutioning process? Are they ready to start this next project? Or do they have other projects lined up in the quarter or the year or the next 3 years? So it really just depends on where the company is currently at with the projects and where we kind of want to start. But it's really important that we lay out all of the different pay points and all of the different value versus effort and impact. We like to do this a lot of times in an Excel sheet so the teams can see all of the different pain points we figured out, and it could be a cumbersome list. But when you start to really narrow it down to the high impact pain points, those are the ones we can really focus on, and then focus on department as well to which ones we really want to tackle at the end of the assessment when we actually start the project.
So you said something interesting there, and you've mentioned this throughout this conversation. When you're talking about the different
Yeah.
departments that have these pain points, are those departments there? Are there people from multiple teams that are there, or are you just talking to one person and they're like, "Oh yeah, This
Absolutely.
department said something about this. I'm not really sure
Yeah.
what it means.
Yeah.
What does
And
that?
this is
Yeah, what does that look like?
yeah, Nate, and sorry to cut you off there, but this is exactly where we uncover the most pain points is during the really the next phase after there's initial discovery conversations, right? And uncovering pain points and documenting them all. We like to bring, you know, for one specific process, there could be multiple teams involved, right? There could be manufacturing, customer service, finance, right? And they all had different touch points along the process. And a lot of times, what we realize is really there's a lack of communication in the
Right.
process or visibility to certain metrics that teams need to be more impactful and streamline the process. So, what you're going to start to see is when we have these cross functional team meetings, that there is a discrepancy in visibility and communication. And you start to understand and you start to uncover, oh, well, we're missing this data point, in customer service. But manufacturing has clear visibility of it, but reacting and actually talking to a customer and making sure shipments get out correctly take longer because there's no visibility to when a shipment is actually sent out. So it's really providing, and that's what these solutions will end up doing too, is providing more visibility across teams and helping with communication as well, because there's an education piece around this as well, where we need to help customers with the assessment understand that we need more cross-functional meetings. We need to understand how people do their day-to-day operations. So we're able to not create bottlenecks from lack of communication between teams, but instead thrive and create one streamlined process. And again, we're talking about a specific process that we want to tackle in the assessment that streams across multiple teams. I can't mention enough that it's important that during these assessments, we have clear communication and even have, if we as an assessment team at ERP Suites don't understand a current process fully, that we may even schedule follow-up sessions with the customer to better understand that process, to make sure we're not missing anything, because this is all going to stem back to whether you create an AI solution or a JD Edwards functionality, we start that up, or an automation. It's all going to stem back to having all the right, correct information and making sure we understand it. Now, when we start the projects in the end at the later date, we can get more detailed of actual processes and how they actually operate. But it's important to really understand all of that. So follow-up meetings are definitely very important as well, and specifically documenting everything, because what might not seem important to us at the very beginning, conversations with the customer may turn out to be the biggest pain point or the biggest issue they're having. So just full communication throughout the process between teams and really documenting everything as well is very important.
So once you've completed the discovery
Yeah,
phase, what does the design phase truly look like?
sure. Yeah. And definitely for the design phase, I think is very important as well, is that we want to look at and label the current processes. And we want to really create a process flow in this. And this is their as is. And where are the bottlenecks, where are the manual processes, and really indicate that to the customer. Again, the Excel sheet can get cumbersome. It's important to understand that in a process view, this is what it looks like to the customer. And what we're going to start to do with those process flows, those initial as is process flows, is we're also going to attach a potential to be solution to it, right? And again, this is going to provide clear communication still with the customer to understand, their various decisions, high impact, low value, or high value, low impact. We're still going to have those conversations around value and impact, but we're going to start to indicate, this is a simple, JD Edwards functionality that needs to be turned on, or this is an automation piece that needs to be created to streamline automation. Maybe that's ingesting an email more easily to get to a specific user, or maybe even it's visibility. So it's creating dashboards to understand what specific customers are doing, specific teams are doing in their business. So it's really signifying the 2B analysis and the JDO, its functionality, automation, and even AI improvements, and how they really all connect together as well to creating a strong solution. And again, we'll go back and present these back to the customer and make sure and deliver to them and make sure that makes sense and show that these will really help alleviate their problems. And what I want to point out here too is that, you know, we really look at these solutions as three different things, and I mentioned them as three different things, but they all work in tandem, right? The JDO is functionality, the automation, and the AI solution. You mentioned before about the phases as well, right? So it's really going to depend on the phase approach as well of when we start to implement those quick wins, right? They could be AI, they could be automation, they could be JDO with functionality. But that's where the customer is going to really start seeing that is with that 2B process flow and how we can start to figure out and alleviate and fix these pain points and issues they're having.
Yeah, so you're constantly mapping their
Absolutely.
as is processes.
Yeah.
But at what point does that switch to you outlining the to be processes?
Yeah, and I tangled that a little bit there in the conversation, but it's really built on top of the as is process, right? And that's when
Okay.
we're going to really start to build out the mixture of phases between JDO, its functionality and opportunities, the automation opportunities, and the AI opportunities, right? And we really want to understand those to be processes so we can build out the as is processes and still reference that Excel sheet with all the different pain points to build out those to be recommendations. And again, those could be low, medium, or high impact and low, medium, or high value. And that's when we start referencing that as well to build out those to be processes.
Yeah. And pretend that I'm a customer out there wondering
Yeah.
why isn't this moving fast enough? Why why can't you start the mapping and maybe even the outlining of the processes as is or to be in the discovery call? Is it just you haven't uncovered enough, or are you just waiting for the right time?
I would go with the former there. It's really we haven't uncovered enough. It's the important
Mhm.
part to really understand what specific issues we're trying to solve, right? And that goes from detailed conversation with the customer. Because again, if we go back to AI, we don't just want to bolt on an AI solution that will not provide high value and high ROI to the business if we don't understand what we're trying to solve, right? And again, they could have those use cases in the end, but the important thing is understanding that we need all the details we need to have before establishing the as is process via a diagram, and then eventually, as we talked about, putting the to be analysis on top of that as is process to where we can alleviate these bottlenecks. And they, really with the presentation to the customer, they can see how we can start to solve these issues. And it's really starting to provide visibility. But the biggest thing is making sure we have all the information before we start building out these recommendations for the customer.
Right. So this is the phase that you start to identify where AI can fit, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and this
Okay.
is exactly where we start to figure out where AI can fit. And it might not be involved in the initial process or the initial recommendation, as I mentioned before, um, but it will be a part of the solution. Talking with customers, there's a lot of times where AI is part of the solution, whether it be a smarter analytics dashboard or a smarter document understanding tool that can read documents better using historical data and provide corrections and exception reports and handling um, as well as providing human in the loop manual review. But it's still important to understand that AI might not be the solution for every problem, but we will start to indicate where it fits in the current business processes after we've done the discovery assessment, the discovery part of the assessment.
Right. So how, like in the discovery phase, maybe even in the design phase, how do you determine what prerequisites must happen before AI can be implemented?
Yeah, and I mentioned this a little bit before, Nate, and the biggest thing is data, right? And a lot of times talking to customers, data may be in Excel sheets, it may be in file folders, it may be in the customer's heads, right? We need readily accessible data, and that's where we start to think about the one source of truth as well. We do these JD Edwards assessment. We want everything to be in JDE, but we know that's not going to be the case, right? There's other ERPs they can use out there. There's other CRMs they can use out there, right? Warehouse management systems they can use out there. But it's important that we have accessibility to all of that, as well as getting all that information that's manual or in files or in someone's head somewhere in a source where we can access it. And a lot of times we recommend JD Edwards, just putting it in there so we can have access to it with our AI services and solutions. So it's very important around that is that we have great data. Data is very accessible when implementing a strong AI solution. And sometimes, again, it's just at the beginning, fixing those process improvements, making stuff less manual, getting all the data in the correct spot before we can build out the solution. So those are the biggest prerequisites, I would say, because without impactful data being the ultimate goal, you need to build out solutions. We're not going to be able to build out a good AI solution for you, but we can also map out these AI assessment recommendations that could happen at, a phase 2 or phase 3 down the line as well.
So this isn't just here's an AI idea, and it's more of here's your current workflow, here's your future workflow, and
Absolutely.
here's what
Yeah.
needs to happen to get there. Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that makes more sense. It's not just you show up one day and you're like, we need AI, and you sit there and say, all right, you can plug it in right here. See you later. It's more of a process of figuring out how AI fits into their future, right?
Correct. And it could fit
Okay.
in, like we said before, just
Yeah.
highlighting, it could fit in as a quick win right away. Once we establish
Yeah.
that process and we're like, oh, this looks really good. You have really good data maturity and consolidation, and it's clean. Okay, we can do an AI quick win then.
And we harp on clean data on this podcast. I think we're gonna rebrand to just clean data. No more JD Edwards, just clean data.
I don't
uh,
know if I go that far,
yeah,
but I
probably
agree.
not.
You need clean data for everything.
Hey, JD Edwards makes it easy for clean data too. So, how do you formalize everything that you've uncovered through the design phase and even the discovery phase?
Yeah, and really, formalizing that is really into a strategic recommendation document, right? And we've talked about before a little bit with the impact versus high impact versus low solution. But what we really want to do is we want to highlight the pain point. We want to give our recommendations, right? And it could be multiple. It doesn't just have to be one. It could be up to, 5 and using different modalities as well, such as we mentioned before, JD Edwards orchestrations being automation or AI. We want to highlight those. We want to level set with the high impact, low, or we want to level set with the effort versus impact as well, is also in that, right? As well as will be involved in the phase approach. And a lot of times when we show this, though, we want to really categorize the recommendations by the various function or department of the business as well. I think that's very important as well as to silo those out to alleviate the conversations we're having back with the customer so they understand these are the specific pain points, and then we can come back together and talk across different departments about the specific pain points and recommendations as well. So it's bring them all together at the last final piece here when you do the final presentation, but it's really about documenting those details on one central space with that specific information.
Yeah, and when you're looking at this document, I assume that the recommendations are categorized. How do you categorize that? Is it AI, automation, JD Edwards? Are those the categories, or is there more to it?
Yeah, a lot of times, as I mentioned before, it really goes around, the specific I'm going to say it depends, right? So a lot of times
Mhm.
it's around the function of the business, right? And like I said, the different departments is very important as well to do it that way. But we also like to look at, uh, impact versus effort is another way we like
Yeah.
to organize these. It's also very important to look at the different recommendations as well, which in the end, in the later phase when we actually go to do our recommendations and building out that PowerPoint, this will be a little bit cleaner, but it's really about putting it all out there for the customer to see, um, everything there that could be done with the specific recommendations, and seeing if that is of any impact to them as well, and seeing if it's worthwhile for them to start. And I'm talking really about the day-to-day business analyst. Does this make sense, right? Um,
Mhm.
and again, we can start to identify quick wins as well in here, and that's very important to make sure that we have, good AI quick wins also involved, so the customer can get, well, AI in general, sorry, AI in general, get the customer can get excited about AI because it's on their roadmap.
Yeah. So when we're talking about these AI quick wins, it's something that we've mentioned on this podcast before. How do you truly identify that? Or is it just something that everyone knows?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to the fact that, it depends on conversations with the customer, right? I think that's the most important thing, is understanding that, we need those prerequisites in there to actually start to implement AI, right? We talk about the ability to have good, strong use cases around AI as well. Ones that we can start to implement right away are ones that are strong use cases with good data maturity, good data consolidation, right? And we can start to categorize those, by team, right? And understand where they would fit. So there may be a dashboard for, a customer service team. There may be a dashboard for a manufacturing team. There may be one for AR or AP. It just really depends on really the function of the business and how they're going to utilize the different AI solutions as well. Whether that be through various automation technology that's AI related, that can do more reasoning, or dashboard related that can provide recommendations. It's really just going to depend by department.
Yeah. So when you're finding these AI quick wins, is it usually just a mix of AI and automation? Or is it just AI? Is it just
This
automation?
this is great, Nate. Yeah. So usually it's really a mix of AI plus automation, right? What we like to mention a lot at ERP Suites is we like to leverage, a lot of JD Edwards tools and technology, and we really leverage orchestrations when building out a lot of our AI solutions because of the ability to connect back seamlessly to JD Edwards and grab and reference data, right? Different accounting rules, different policies, different
Yeah.
regulations, and so we can reference that to make sure when we implement an AI solution, and you've talked about agents in the past, implementing an AI agent into your system, we're understanding how a process ultimately runs, based off
Yeah.
that data inside of your JD Edwards system. So that's something we really look at as well, um, with these quick wins, and it's really around, but also around, yeah, like you said, AI and automation, right? And it's really just not around like process improvement for AI, but we want to just leverage solutions that have both orchestration automation capabilities as well as better intelligence to help customers make smarter and better decisions in the future.
Right. And maybe to backtrack a little bit, are there cases out there where maybe just a standard JD Edwards configuration, does that solve the issue? Are there cases out there?
Oh, 100%. There's cases out there like that. A lot of times, what customers will say with their bottlenecks or pain points in their business is that they don't see something correctly on a screen, or they didn't know we can do MRP or demand planning or forecasting or various other JD Edwards functionalities, or maybe utilizing a widget for analysis, just quick analysis inside of JD Edwards. So it's ultimately comes down to the fact that we need to figure out the specific pain point to start solution it. And sometimes the easiest thing to do is to just provide visibility via JD Edwards or a different way of doing things inside of JD Edwards. Maybe it's status control and whatnot with the current process. So it definitely comes into play a lot, actually. And a lot of times the JD Edwards core functionality can help with the data consolidation and data quality as well as visibility that will lead to an eventual AI solution as well.
So it comes down to this phase being transparency. Understanding from us what we're seeing versus what their pain points are, and having that strong, I guess, relationship in this way of uh, being open and having those real conversations that,
Absolutely.
yeah, that like some people will have a hard time maybe seeing, but at the end of the day, the more open you can be when it comes to your pain points, when it comes to your actual process, you'll find things in there that could be fixed with a simple JD Edwards configuration. You can
Yep.
find things that can be fixed with just an automation, or you can find out that you're actually really good at a lot of the baseline stuff that we've been talking about, and you're ready for AI. So there's all three of those things that really come down to how transparent are you with us, but with yourself as well. But all right, so once everything is documented and once that phase is really kind of wrapped up, what does the roadmap phase look like?
Yeah, and this is really the exciting phase, right? Now that everything's documented, you've had your conversations, you've had those discovery calls, you've had the process flow discussions, we're understanding everything. They've seen some recommendations, they've seen some high value versus low impact. Customers have made ideas or suggestions on that for where they want to go. Now we really start to consolidate those things. What are the things that are the highest value? How can we solve them, and how can we lay this out to a customer? So that turns into our roadmap phase, right? um, you know Giving those multiple recommendations in a presentation and having to understand what they need to do. That might first be cleanup, right? It might be getting some documents, some information from Excel into JD Edwards, or information that's in the heads of the customer into a specified data source so we can actually leverage that, right? It may even involve potential automation, right, to minimize touch points between teams or provide more visibility between teams. And then an AI solution in the end, really providing recommendations to make the customers more proactive in their business. But it all starts with that manual cleanup, right? The manual process
Right.
cleanup, the data cleanup, and then automating how the different touch points go to minimize the pain points between different departments. And then lastly, it's around building out AI solutions that can enhance whether it be automation or various ways customers can be proactive with better visibility on how they operate, or even helping them do certain things in their business that will allow them again to be more proactive instead of reactive.
Right. But how do you determine what gets tackled first? I know you listed a few things there, but say they have multiple of those issues.
Yeah.
How can you determine the specific one that they should go after
Yeah, and
first?
absolutely. Yeah. And again, this goes back to having those conversations with the customer, right? It's
Yeah.
conversations to figure out what are their high value, high impact, and it could be low effort, it could be medium, it could be high. Where do they want to tackle first? What's on their roadmap as far as for the business the rest of the year? What are the various projects and initiatives? Where can we even start first? And what department can we start first? Right? All those things really come into play when building out those recommendations, but it's really a full conversation. And really, with the assessment, we're providing the high value recommendations, but we want to have a conversation with the customer to understand where to actually start first, right? So I think that's important to understand, that really comes after the assessment, but just know that it will be a partnership throughout the whole process with ERP suites and the customer.
Yeah. So This is where you would actually create the phase execution plan, right? Like in this phase.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, yeah,
So,
absolutely, right? So it's important to understand that we want to have a phased execution process when building out the assessments because we want to give the customer a clear picture of where to start. And we've mentioned it before with the JDO with functionality and the automation, the AI. None of that, all of that really does matter, but at the same time, it really, we want to give a timeline and we want to give a good roadmap for how the customers can actually accomplish this in the end. And that's where the phase approach that Nate mentioned comes into play, where again, phase one might be cleaning up your data. Phase two might be automating to get rid of the manual processes. And phase three may be AI. It might not go in that order every time, but it's about presenting and building out that roadmap to show them where they can go and where they can be and what's all possible when we do the assessment and we uncover all of the very cool initiatives and things we can alleviate in their business and in future state. It looks very promising for the customer, but a lot of times, again, you can't tackle everything at once, and that's why we like to break it out in different phases.
yeah, you can show all this stuff to a leadership team, but how can you really get them to align to this roadmap?
Yeah, and that's a big question as well, Nate. Right, the biggest thing to get them to actually align around this roadmap is really around complete transparency around why we did what we did and why we recommended what we recommended because we've spent this time right in the discovery phases really understand how your business operates. We created trust that we understand your issues and we've heard you and we know where these are causing problems. And the biggest thing is that we created that trust. Now we can move forward with this is what we think you can do. But let's talk about, let's think of what you had in mind in the next quarter or the next year. Let's think about where you feel like that, where you feel like we can provide the most impact with our solutions. But it's really going to be about, establishing that trust, the understanding that we have spent the time, we've understood their business, and we're ready to move forward with these projects and initiatives in the end. And again, this is all presented in a PowerPoint presentation, just so we can indicate that and easily explain why we're doing what we're doing. And we want to have, again, in that final conversation as well, and get on the same page with where we want to go and what initiatives we want to tackle after the AI assessment.
So, say that there's a little bit of a pushback, I
Right.
guess, from leadership that they think that their system's fine and they just want AI. What would you say to that to try to align them a little bit better?
Yeah, I think that's important to really establish earlier, honestly, right?
Mhm.
It's coming from really those calls before we've even started a specific process assessment or AI assessment. It's really understanding, hey, and telling them this is where we think you are at, right? You don't really have the AI education to really just jump into building a solution because you're not educated on the specific value it can provide you or really
Mm.
how long it's going to take to potentially build out that AI solution if we don't have good data, right? Good security, good infrastructure, and good access to the data. So it's really important to understand that we need we need customers to understand that um, AI is not a solution for everything, and we need to build towards AI. And again, some customers may be ready to do that quick win, but it's really going to depend on the preliminary conversations we have in the assessment to which route we go down. And a lot of times, these discovery or these initial conversations with the customer will lead the customer into wanting to actually realize, oh shoot, there is a lot of issues in my process assessments not trying to plug it right here, but I guess I will. ERP Suites is a full end-to-end provider, so we can help you in any way with your JDO, its functionality in the end. But it's really just that basic understanding at the very beginning, and just knowing that AI will be in your roadmap, right? It might not be the first phase, it might be the third phase, but just knowing it's there is also important for the customer.
Yeah, knowing that you are building towards AI and
100%.
nothing that ERP suites or anyone would suggest before that step, they're all very important. They're all going to address certain pain points. They're not just going to come up with some random idea that doesn't
Right.
impact your business in a positive way. So it's about understanding that, yes, you want to get to AI and it might be out of reach right now, but it won't be. It won't be for long. As long as you understand that getting to that next step, getting to AI, making your lives easier will start in the first phase, but getting
Absolutely.
to AI might be a little bit later. So the real question here is, with this roadmap, will you get a price or how will that kind of be decided?
In the end, when we present our recommendations, we'll really have, specific pricing around that too, right? What's this all going to take? What's the, again, level of effort, the timeline, and the price of what this initiatives will actually take is very important as well. And these could really occur after the assessment as well, because we really want to focus on those specific recommendations that can help your business, right? And price will definitely be a factor, but with the assessment, you got to understand what you're getting out of it isn't just a specific price, but it's a list of where you can go with the business. But we can also attach price onto various initiatives as well. That's yes.
Awesome. So instead of walking away with just a tool recommendation, they're walking away with visibility,
Yep.
prioritization, and a
Absolutely.
clear execution strategy, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely.
So let's address the elephant in the room. We've mentioned it throughout this podcast, but most of these take multiple weeks. Why is that the case? Or is it always the case?
Yeah, and again, it's not always the case, right? We mentioned it before that some of these assessments can be shorter. It's really going to be dependent on how we feel about a certain process. How streamlined is that process that we want to focus on, right? Because when that process is more streamlined, data is in a good spot, it's easily accessible. We can start to do these really forward looking, impactful AI initiatives from the very start, right? It's still going to take some conversations with the customer to understand their processes at a high level, but it's important to know that these will take less time if we don't need to go back and actually rework certain specific processes that require a lot of manual effort and work and all that, and have a lot of different pain points, a lot of different touch points that we talked about that can create bottlenecks in the business. So it's not always the case where this is going to take multiple weeks, right? But I also wouldn't say it would take 1 week to do this, right? We still need some great understanding as well as configuration around, security, infrastructure, and all that to actually implement a solution as well, and specifically an AI solution. So,
Yeah. And I'm sure if your leadership team and all these teams have
yeah,
a very free schedule that they can talk every day, you could get this done in a week for sure. But you're talking about a lot of time allotted for these important people that have very busy schedules of their own. So it might be a little bit difficult. But what would you miss if like this was rushed? If you did have like oh, we need this done in a week and you only had 2 meetings.
right, right. And I think the important thing to look at here is you'll really miss out on very valuable high reward AI or automation solutions, right? And that's the biggest thing. You'll use a bolt on AI solution to fix a certain business process that isn't actually going to fix anything, but provide more headaches in the future because you're just bolting it in there without any real testing, without any real education around, usability with the specific solution, whether that be automation or AI. It's important as well to really think about that before doing any of these, implementations, that we have this assessment where we're understanding the clear value behind it, right? And how it's going to really differentiate and help you with achieving your overall business goals, right? Because that's what we're really striving for here. How can we make everything more streamlined and better, more streamlined in your business, but also help to achieve the goals you're striving to achieve in that next year, with process improvement, with your AI initiative. So it's really going to depend on that. And if you rush it again, you're not getting any value. You're creating more headaches for everyone. And it's pricey to build out in solution any of these solutions. So we want to make sure we have the right solution so we're not having to do rework and failures and wasting money. And that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
So yeah, like if they truly did skip like
Yeah.
the prioritization step, there'd be a lot of broken models. There'd be a lot more money
100%.
having to pour into this because you're basically working backwards. And when you're doing
Yeah.
that, it takes more time because you make the AI solution and then you realize, oh wait, this is broken. This isn't right. We have to go back and fix this. And then once that's fixed, you try it again. And then something else is broken. Something else needs to be fixed.
Yeah,
So at
exactly.
that point, it'll probably take more time, more effort, more money, and you won't see AI for even longer than what you're trying to do here, which is rush it, which is an interesting way to think about this. But to take your time and to really understand your business processes might be the fastest way that you can implement AI, even if you do want to rush it, if your leadership team is really pushing you to do it, or board, or whatever is out there. It's interesting to hear that point of view because again, a lot of people want to rush into this thing called AI, and it's a very hot topic in the market right now. But if you don't have your processes aligned to get to that step, then AI is a fever dream for some of these companies. Yes, there are those that are out there that have done their homework, that know
Yep.
exactly what they needed to do, that have everything. They maybe did a upgrade recently that made them get all their ducks in a row. And so they're ready for it. They're ready to take that next step. But if you're sitting there and you've been on the same JD Edwards for 15 years, which we have seen, you might not be ready to take
Yeah,
that step into
100%.
AI.
You brought up a great point, Nate. The upgrades are huge, right?
Mhm.
And we talked about in past podcasts, the ability to authenticate directly to some of these AI services, and we use OCI, but and the ability to leverage orchestrations that are heavily used in AI solutions, especially RAS AI solutions. So an upgrade's an absolute fantastic point to mention as well. That's something we definitely, before we even start an AI assessment, we know where the customer is with their upgrade and what's possible there.
Yeah. So if you rush AI, you automate chaos. But if you take the time to evaluate effort versus value, you protect your ROI and ensure that when AI is implemented, it actually drives measurable impact.
Yep.
So if someone's listening to this and their
Yeah.
leadership team keeps saying, we need AI, what should they do before scheduling an assessment?
Yeah. I think the most important thing before scheduling assessment is one, educating them about if the assessment is the right approach, right? Because a lot of times leadership will be, from the highest tower screaming, "We need AI, we need AI, we need AI, we need a solution now." And we've already talked about it, rushed, right? We can't rush this. We need to have education around AI, right? I present at various user groups, and there's different things out there on our website about AI and the evolution of AI and what's out there, but it all really starts around education, right? And from the top down or bottom up, it's education around AI, and that's the important thing. And understanding, how it can really be impactful in your business. Um, Really starting to think about use cases as well. I think that's also important. Having a list of strong use cases to bring to leadership of where you think AI will fit. as well into your business is also very important. And also really thinking about emphasizing, hey, I've noticed now after my education that AI really doesn't solve everything,
Mhm.
but we might need to take a step back and look at the overall process as a whole and see the issues we're having inside of various processes to understand that we need to fix these things prior before really jumping into a full AI solution that won't provide any real valuable ROI to it. So it's really emphasizing to leadership that there is a road to AI without jumping straight into it. It's really
Right.
about understanding your business and where AI truly fits based off, like we said, assessments that help educate yourself on the business process, as well as tools out there that will educate you on AI itself and how we can start to combine those together to build a strong AI solution.
Exactly. An AI assessment isn't about buying technology. It's about
Right.
building clarity. And clarity is what drives smarter investments inside JD Edwards. But if you want to learn more, go to erpsuites.com/AI. We have a page there that talks about the different AI agents that we're doing and what AI truly means for your business and for your future. AI might be a part of your future, but the real value of an AI assessment is understanding your business deeply enough to know when and how to implement it. If you found this helpful, share it with your leadership team and subscribe to our podcast here. See you next time.